They've given, where on the other hand, the men who are married are just fine because they are the ones who are being taken care of. They're the ones who everybody is pouring everything into.
This is called the marriage benefit imbalance.
For 5 centuries, before the end of the Second World War, the West had been expanding. Its missionaries, its pilgrims, its soldiers, its explorers pouring out from its shores to cross oceans, settle new continents, build vast empires extending out across the globe.
As you guys know, my channel is not a geopolitical focused channel, but if you listen to the speech that Secretary of State Marco Rubio just made to the Munich Security Council, I mean, the speech is called Europe Must Survive.
But in 1945, for the first time since the age of Columbus, it was contracting. Europe was in ruins. Half of it lived behind an iron curtain, and the rest looked like it would soon follow. The great Western empires had entered into terminal decline, accelerated by godless communist revolutions and by anti-colonial uprisings that would transform the world and drape the red hammer and sickle across vast swaths of the map in the years to come.
Now juxtapose the speech that we just heard Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying the same week that this very unique stat came out about births being down, and particularly certain births in America, with this woman teaching women how to avoid marriage.
What you do is you go out and, especially women are taught this.
Yes.
You get love by pouring in, and then you hope that you get some back.
That's right.
And you give up and sacrifice for this person.
This is why you write later in the book that women who are married end up being unhappier because they've given, where on the other hand, the men who are married are just fine because they are the ones who are being taken care of. They're the ones who everybody is pouring everything into.
This is called the marriage benefit imbalance. And marriage is a very good deal for men. It's not a good deal for women. I don't know what the statistics are in same-sex marriages because I don't think it's been studied. Mm-hmm. But the question remains, who's playing the traditional role of the wife in this relationship, meaning who's overgiving, right? Who is overgiving to somebody with the hope that they will maybe give love back to them?
And this is why we do not want our allies to be weak, because that makes us weaker. We want allies who can defend themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength. This is why we do not want our allies to be shackled by guilt and shame. We want allies who are proud of their culture and of their heritage, who understand that we are heirs to the same great and noble civilization, and who together with us are willing and able to defend it.
This is why we do not want our allies to be shackled by guilt or shame. We want allies who are proud of their culture and of their heritage, who understand that we are heirs to the same great and noble civilization, and who together with us are willing and able to defend it. To be honest with you, I think there has been an overreaction to black men in this particular part of the space, speaking about our experiences, what we want in the modern dating market in terms of family creation, raising our children, or what have you. And I think many of the detractors have been women, more specifically black women. But if you look at the bigger picture, this is the Secretary of State of the United States in Europe talking about preserving heritage and culture and not being ashamed of it. Now, I don't know how you interpret that, but I know how I interpret that, especially when the talk of the day sounds like this from women that are going through these kinds of issues, telling other women in the West not to get married and not to have kids.
And I think the reason that it's so hard that love addiction and sex addiction have not really gotten the prominence that alcohol and substance abuse is because, first of all, it's really working for men.
Yeah.
It's like, it's really working for them, And so I think the stories that keep being fed to girls of like, you're going to find your prince and he's going to take care of you, continually keep pushing girls and women into this dream where the reality is you're probably very likely going to end up taking care of him.
When you hear the initial part of this interview from Elizabeth Gilbert with Oprah, I played it before, you're thinking, well, maybe she's got something to her. She's written a couple of books that made her really famous and wealthy. But then when you listen to her past, my question was, why would Oprah let someone this damaged speak to all of these women on her platform?
Now, you write on page 35, I've caused tremendous harm to myself and others through my decades of sex and love addiction.
There are not a lot of women out there who will publicly admit to being sex and love addicts because it sounds pretty gnarly. In fact, it is gnarly. I won't get into salacious details here, but I will say that my addiction manifests as a sincere yet deeply misguided belief that somebody outside of myself will miraculously be able to heal me on the inside. My desperation to be loved is certainly outsized, and it has caused me to act out in ways that are undeniably insane. Yet I suspect that parts of my story may feel familiar to many of my readers, especially my female readers. Sex and intimacy and deep need for connection is a process of addiction. So where you, a normal person, whatever that is, might feel some warmth and some tenderness when you have physical touch with somebody, I get high off it. Like I get a dump of oxytocin into my blood system that is so high that my system then kind of acclimates to that, and then it needs it again. And then it needs it again. And then it needs, just like any addiction, it needs a higher and higher
That's
and
what
higher
you mean
dosage.
by your need to be loved is so outsized.
So outsized.
Yeah. And
right?
falling in love for you is like a drug, because you said
Yes.
on page 38, I don't need alcohol and drugs to alter my consciousness, that other people might experience pleasurable sensations. I get wasted.
I get wasted. And I lose my judgment. I lose my dignity. And very soon it will end up with me begging.
I think there's a key point to take away from Eat, Pray, Love author Elizabeth Gilbert's life. She was married twice to two men. She did not have children with either of them. She then got into a same-sex relationship with a young lady, and then she passed away, and then she got into another relationship. And she's on Oprah essentially telling all women in the West to do the same thing. And you can see that this is directly at odds with what we're hearing from the Secretary of State in trying to preserve Western culture, which is why I think this is actually making us look like the good guys. Because compared to what's coming for that conversation, we are relatively soft. I mean, this is what we sound like when we're talking about our issues.
Do you feel like women's value gets lowered when they have multiple children by multiple men?
I just think that the reality of that answer is women's value get lower the more children that they have. And I was having this conversation, with one of the mother of my children, and she's still fine. Mm-hmm. You feel what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But like I was telling her, I was like, yo, the guy that you're dating or will date, if he ain't willing to love on these 5 children that you have, that ain't the guy for you. Because when I came into your life, I was willing to accept you and whatever you had. And there's guys that's out there that's just going to say, them ain't my kids, I want you. Well, that ain't how it works.
Let's be honest here. This is not groundbreaking talk here. Even if people are reacting to this in a way as if they're flabbergasted that how dare a man of his means and of his status have multiple baby mothers, but speak this way about baby mothers when it's kind of common knowledge, really. It's only really a conversation in the black space where a man who is simply saying that most men don't want to marry women that have children by other men. I mean, that's a given in most other places. But then again, you have to understand the dynamic of the black space, of the black community. And you have to speak a certain way or you are not allowed to speak at all, which again makes us the nice guys. Right, Mr. Z?
I will say this to Jeff St. James. That's the whole point, brother. That's something I make mention of on my channel often.
If the choices are, according to them, either we say nothing and pander to them, regardless of their behavior and actions that's helped contribute to how we got in this position, or either ignore it, or if we say something, we're now no different than white supremacists and people who are functioning outside the community that's anti-black. That's a false binary that only they operate out of. That's why in their worldview, there is no shame. There is no criticism. There is no negative feedback or constructive feedback that needs to exist, especially from people who the black women are actually wanting to marry. This is why you can't say nothing. This is why they can cheer when somebody dead. They can cheer when people are grieving. You know the roles are reversed, how we would look crazy if we were doing this. A room of 4, 5, 6 men making fun of some black woman that died and all the black women that's upset about that. Doesn't sound insane?
The channel wouldn't even be up. It would be monetized and brought down.
Yeah, it sounds sick. And because they're so used to in a world where women are allowed to do it and them having a women's mindset, this is why they think it's appropriate for men to do the same. I've seen men who took the lives of other men's family members and show more respect for those family members than what I saw in that room.
So bullshit. I hear Kevin Samuels dying. I'm like, hey, bro, y'all gotta chill. You know, hey, RP to my this JJ come out of nowhere. That died on a girl or something. I'm like, he like that bitch ass nigga died on a girl. I was like,
and I'm not surprised. So when I said last year that there's no men left in the Democrat Party, when the liberal left, it's all males, and they're all led by females, and everybody wanted to go all up in arms with me, this is what you see.
That's the whole point, brother. That's something I make mention of on my channel often, is for you to show that you're an ally to black women as a black man, particularly a straight black man, you have to be sassy, mean, snarky, dismissive to other black men. You can't speak to them how I'm speaking, even though I'm in disagreement with you, how I'm speaking to you in Obsidian and Darwin. I'm not even talking to y'all directly. And there you can sense the level of respect. You can't speak like this. Once again, sensible leftists here, you can't speak. For you to show you're an ally of black women as a straight black man, you have to be antagonistic to other straight black men who are not kissing black women's ass.
The safest and most supportive person in most women's lives is another woman. The safest and most supportive person in most men's lives is also a woman. Gender war over, men, let's get to work.
And please stop asking me, have I ate or do I need anything? Just send the funds and say, eat again. Or just send the funds and say, eat with this money and do whatever with the rest. Or just send the funds because you just want to send the funds. Stop asking dumb questions. Why are you asking me, do I need anything? I'm always going to need something. Stop asking me, am I hungry? I'm always hungry. Just send the funds.
But I do know that a lot of these sentiments do resonate within men, the idea of looking at women as an enemy in many different ways due to failed romantic relationships. But I do think rather than going through the back and forth of the gender wars, it's important to just take note of what we've observed.
I had another baby in November that I decided not to keep.
You told me that the baby died and died. She said the baby died with his umbilical cord wrapped around his neck.
Oh, I was not that dramatic.
And I might hate you for the rest of my life, for real. Because you knew. You knew.
Why would you tell him that the baby was dead, though?
To be honest, I wanted him to be hurt. I wanted his feelings to be hurt. I just wanted him to feel something because I never feel like he feels anything. And I'm always the one just feeling some stuff, like feeling hurt.
We've observed that women have a lot more depth in terms of their community with each other. They support each other very well. And beyond that, they support each other in ways that oftentimes men don't.
And I make a significant amount more money than my man. I always have an issue because I want to do things on the spur of the moment. Let's go on a trip. Let's go on vacation. And he'll be like, no, babe, we're going to have to wait. You know, I got to save up. Why is it an issue?
Never date a man that makes significantly less than you. Exactly. Look, I'm going to tell you, I ain't telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I know. Basically what she's saying is a man is broke. Okay. Let me tell you this. Have y'all ever dated a broke man? He's mean. He's frustrated. He's nagging. He tries to dim your light, okay? You deserve somebody that is semi-equally yoked. And I mean, when you break down the tax dollar.
Women tend to be a better support system to each other than men are to each other. And that's something that we can learn from them. So let's focus on learning soft skills, empathy, and developing emotional intelligence to not only better love our own selves, but also those around us.
Here is where I want you to notice the considerable contrast between the kinds of conversations we're having in the black space about women that have children by several different men and that making them less attractive to men that don't have any children, or just the tone of the conversation itself and what black men are allowed to say and the manner that black men are allowed to say it in, compared with this conversation with Piers Morgan and a streamer named Clavicular talking about a model in Sydney Sweeney.
And what about women? Because I was very surprised about what you said about Sydney Sweeney. You said, I would say that she's pretty malformed. Her upper maxilla is extremely recessed. She's got the eyes of doom with no infraorbital support. She's not really that much of a looker in her face. I think that a lot of people with porn brains find that attractive because of her body.
True.
I mean, very ungentlemanly comments. And second,
Well, maybe a little
you
bit.
couldn't be more wrong. I mean, she's like the hottest sex symbol in Hollywood right now.
Well, yeah, but like I said, that's because a lot of male society is obsessed with pornography. They're gooners, right? So that sort of body type and that sort of archetype is sort of what they're looking for. You know, and this is sort of true about most of the famous OnlyFans models, most of the famous stars, is they don't have model faces, right? They would never be seen on a Victoria's Secret runway. They simply have big tits and big asses. Okay.
I'm just curious what you have a problem with your problem with those particular women's body part measurements.
I don't think it's a problem at all, but it only becomes a problem to me when you sort of place these things higher than the face in terms of sexual desire, right? I think a girl with a good face is, you know, a lot more desirable than these, you know, sort of curvy models who don't necessarily have good bone structure facially. They've got a lot of, you know, phalos. They've got recessed convexities. So like that sort of thing is not really what I'm into. The whole Sydney Sweeney look.
Do you not think it sounds a bit misogynist, though? Can't you give women a bit more of a break? I mean, to study them in such extraordinarily pedantic detail.
Now, this part is key because he's going to try and shame him a little bit about having these kinds of preferences and evaluating women this way. Notice the way that he makes his response.
Do you not think it sounds a bit misogynist, though? Can't you give women a bit more of a break? I mean, to study them in such extraordinarily pedantic detail, overanalyzing every inch of their aesthetics, and if they don't reach your high levels of maxing, then they must be rubbish.
Give women a break. I mean, women won't even look at a man who's under 6 foot as a human in a lot of cases. Like, what are we talking about? They are the most brutal gender, and this is the most brutal dating market that we've ever been in. So for you to sit here and tell me that I'm being too mean or I'm not being gentlemanly, it's just a little bit silly. We just have to look on the other side of the aisle to see what's going on, and I think you'll find me pretty justified.
If you pay attention, you can see that we're having two drastically different conversations. This is a young man criticizing the way a model looks, saying that many young ladies are getting additions that make them look more attractive than they really are. And in our space, we're having a conversation about why are men laughing at the fact that a guy who was trying to get black relationships together passed away, and calling him a misogynist because he had the audacity to be critical of young ladies' expectations in the black community. Two totally different conversations that, like I said earlier, are going to make us look like the nice guys in all of this. Even with our criticisms, we're in this situation where there's a backdrop of the Secretary of State in Europe saying we need to protect our culture and our demographics.
For we in America have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline. We do not seek to separate, but to revitalize an old friendship and renew the greatest civilization in human history.
Now, you can call me silly if you want to, but when you hear the Secretary of State in Europe saying we need to reinvigorate the greatest civilization that has ever existed on this planet, what exactly do you think he's alluding to? I'm not sure what's coming down the road, but what I can assure you is that the conversation we're having here in this space is a lot kinder than the conversation that's coming on that other side of all of this. And so for all of the young ladies that are pointing at us and saying that we're all of these nasty, terrible things, one thing is going to be on the table that cannot be denied. The demographics are an issue. And when you have certain people on Oprah preaching a kind of philosophy that's basically counter to the Secretary of State of the United States and what his stated objectives are, something is coming down the road that is going to be a lot different than the conversation we're having in this space, where you can make fun of a guy who's trying to save black relationships. What it looks like, I do not know, but I can tell you this much. It's not going to be eat, pray, love. It's going to be eaten, prayed, and unloved for some women if they don't get on the right page of what's coming down the pike. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.